Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Project Flux podcast. Today on the Spotlight series, we are joined by Josh Schumann, who is the Director of Pepper Build Construction and the consultant for NavLive. Hi, Josh. Thank you for coming on.
Hi, Yoshi. Hi, James. Pleasure to be here.
And as always, we have Yoshi with us. How are you, Yoshi, today?
I'm good, mate. How are you?
Yeah, really good, really good. We're recording this on a Friday before a bank holiday weekend, so I think we're all feeling pretty good. And last course of action before the weekend, which will be nice, hopefully if the weather's good. But I've been quite excited about this one. We've tried to get it in the diary a few times. I met you, Josh, I don't know, a few weeks ago now, or probably a month or so
Almost
ago
a few
now.
months ago, yeah.
Yeah, it shows how time flies. And you showed me what NavLive were doing. I was lucky enough to experience it and use it, and I thought, well, I've got to get you on the show to talk about this because this would be right up our listeners' street. So really, really excited to talk about NavLive and what you're doing there with the cutting edge technology. Why didn't that? How we like to start the segment is you to introduce yourself first of all, and then also to talk about, the big things that you're thinking about in terms of technology and construction at the moment. But if you could perhaps start just with telling us about, well, both Pepper Build Construction and NavLive, that'd be really great.
Sure. So I've been in construction industry for just over 12 years now. Currently, I'm running a high-end residential construction company, which is called Pepper Build. The Pepper bit is after we had an investor whose cat is called Pepper Pot. So it's good to give back to your investors and make sure that they feel linked to the company. So that's a high-end residential company. We work in Kensington, Chelsea, and those sort of areas. Our goal is to be reasonably boutique, essentially. Mm-hmm. Focusing more on the quality rather than quantity, because that seems to be quite a touching point in the construction industry at the moment, especially with the way the industry is going. Yeah. And NavLive is sort of a company I'm involved with, which has sort of drawn a lot more of my tech passion and excitement into it. So probably for the last 8 years, I've been quite into, well, originally then it was the lack of construction tech, but now it's the amount of construction tech in the industry, which just goes to show how quickly it's sort of all been thrown at us. And NavLive is a handheld Lidar device able to take you from a simple walkthrough holding the device. You can walk through a site existing or in progress. It'll take a point cloud data mapping of that site, but then more excitingly processes all the data on the device, allowing you to then literally, it'll give you a basic floor plan slices and elevations and sections within sort of 60 seconds of completing the scan. So like a really, definitely the forefront of the sort of the scanning software, which is quite cool.
Yeah, and it really is compact as well from what I saw. It's, absolutely handheld, really light, easy to use. Well, we're going to come on a lot more to talk about NavLive, but can I ask you from you said you're kind of very invested in tech and finding out what's happening, and you're right, things have moved on hugely in the last few years, almost to the point of saturation in terms of just how many startups there are out there, and everyone's an AI startup, aren't they? And it's all getting very, very confusing about what actually is AI and what's just being rebadged as AI. What's the kind of thing that you're really interested in or you're really thinking about in terms of tech in construction at the moment?
I mean, I think for construction tech, realistically, it's the next level of project management softwares that sort of quite excited me in that world. I sort of feel like if you go back a couple of years, if you go back a few years, there was nothing. Everything was Excel. And then we've had this lump of, you've got Procore and Autodesk and Oracle. They also jumped in and started doing construction management softwares, which is great. Now they're all throwing sort of AI, and I invert the commas around the AI because I don't quite think it's not really doing anything yet. It's sort of more like a Microsoft Copilot, which is not super helpful. And so I guess really I'm waiting for the next bit. So the proper push into project management softwares that actually help you project manage rather than just say, oh, here's a tool. But it'll actually give you the sort of the guidelines and the rails that to get you through the project cycle. And even more so, like the next bit is how we work into pricing. So true pricing softwares, I've seen quite a few that have popped up, a lot of them all sort of startups. And I know a couple of developers who are building their own stuff in-house just to try and, I guess, take some of the risk out of construction. So, I mean, I think that's definitely the most exciting next bit. I mean, obviously, other than scanning software.
Of course.
But definitely project management software is, I think, where the next big sort of jump will be in construction.
Josh, you kind of mentioned Copilot, and I've heard this from a few people, terms of a lot of these AI solutions, what is it? Is it just a wrapper? Can wrappers themselves be useful? But then there's always more of a specific thing around Copilot that is, an AI system that's given to you by Microsoft, and it isn't always the first choice with a lot of these generative AI tools. But because you're already housed in Microsoft, like a lot of construction is, it typically tends to be the safer bet, the one which is typically more resilient. How have you found using things like Copilot? Do you find it useful?
No. So I guess my issue with Copilot is that it was sort of thrust upon me after I'd already adopted other solutions or been aware of
Yeah.
other solutions. And a little bit like, why don't I use Gemini on my Google phone? Because, well, by the time that was thrust upon me, I was already using other solutions,
Right.
be it either sort of ChatGPT or Grok or Manus, which is the one that James suggested I have a look at, which was at that time when he suggested it, I was like, wow, shit, this is really quite, sort of next level forward. I mean, I think Copilot it doesn't feel like it's sort of intuitive enough. So I
Hmm.
know Procore is sort of looking to do something similar with the way that they integrate AI into their systems. I don't know. It doesn't, yeah, it's difficult to say. It doesn't feel as sort of conclusive as the way of software like Manus, where you can see it all thinking, you can see what it's actually undertaking for you, rather than just presenting results. I mean, I
It's
should say
real.
at the moment, I'm disliking ChatGPT because it's lying to me constantly, which I find really frustrating. And I guess that's where I like the visibility side of things, of the Manus. So you can see where it's coming from, you can see what it's doing, and you can actually sort of help it along the way,
Mm.
which I find quite.
I find it so surprising that Manus hasn't picked up more than it has. Like, it still seems quite niche and not many people use it. It's so intuitive, and you're right. It's
Mm.
that level of visibility and transparency that it gives you, because it really does describe everything that it's doing. So if it does something wrong, at least you know why. But on the Copilot thing, I think it's such an interesting point, because I do agree with you. It feels like it's a square in a round hole, and it feels like Microsoft have almost tried just to find a way of, getting this huge investment they've made in OpenAI and finding a way of plugging it into the tools. But Yoshi and I were debating this just today, weren't we, mate? And in terms of, just because we were quite invested in it, and just because we know that it's got flaws, for some people it's could be a good introduction. Like, it could be their light bulb moment. It could be the way
Mm.
for them to go from nothing to finding something. So I'm kind of torn, in it, between saying, well, Copilot's difficult to use, whilst at the same time understanding that it actually is quite a nice way for somebody who knows nothing about it to integrate it into the apps they know and love, and at least making a start with utilizing artificial
But I think
intelligence.
this is part of the problem, though, right? And Josh, we probably good to pose this question to you. But with the Microsoft piece, because they have such a huge share of the market, and they can bring a lot of their technology to people, there's also that parallel risk of an AI bubble. And if these
Mm,
things don't land effectively, and there's loads of articles coming out recently about businesses not being able to justify the ROI or the efficiencies gained from AI, which could lead to that bubble burst. So you get a lot more discourse of, some of the thought leaders hyping it up. I think from that perspective, Josh, do you find that that is a risk within construction? Because we're in an industry whereby people don't really adopt new technologies because they're used to a certain way of doing things. Do you find that if there are technologies, let's say if it is within scanning or within AI, if that first impression doesn't land well, do you think it's quite difficult to get it back within construction to the momentum of where it was before?
Yeah, I mean, I think where construction has been so tech averse and now everything's been thrown at it super quickly, I completely agree with you there, Yoshi. I mean, although, okay, I agree with you in a big sense, but my smaller sense is construction is aging and we've got a new generation that are coming through. And that new generation that I say coming through, hopefully coming through, are going to be more tech savvy than the ones that have to be convinced. So
mm,
they're going to be more accepting of the mistakes potentially that they make and more understanding on how to prompt correctly and how to get the best out of those softwares. Now, if we're saying, okay, so that if you froze the demographics where we are now and you say, okay, these are the softwares we're going to use, sure, the generation in the 40s and 50s that aren't sort of used to using these softwares, they're going to struggle. And the moment they do something wrong, I mean, like I see it on LinkedIn quite often where, I mean, LinkedIn's full of ChatGPT articles these days, but somebody basically posted a ChatGPT thing about a roof detail, and they were bombarded by architects saying, that detail is completely wrong, it doesn't work, it's against building regulations, you can't use this sort of stuff. And I guess that's part of the part of the issue is that if people are so easily to throw out this sort of misinformation without having the experience to check it, then you get that distrust. But I guess the hope is that the younger generation, as they go through, the ones that are more used to using it, it may catch up, or we may have this hybrid spot where you're right, where the bubble just gets. I mean, I'd say probably the bubble in AI is about as toppy as it can be right now.
Yeah.
It's been like really thrown at us that AI is going to do everything. And I don't know about you guys, but the ChatGPT version 5 that came out, I mean, all right, it's pretty similar to the one before. It didn't do anything like revolutionary, which is sort of what I was waiting for. I mean,
It was a disappointment, wasn't it? It was a disappointment.
I mean, was it any more revolutionary than like when Chat 3.5 like really came out? That was great.
Yeah, so we were discussing this, me and James, because I said that I feel like we're hitting a plateau point of where the scaling hypothesis around scaling the data, the inference time is coming to diminishing returns. Right, there's only so much more you can squeeze out before we completely change the paradigm. But then you kind of hit this valley where it's like, well, if we're not getting this exponential growth, which we were kind of talking about, just 6 months ago, what happens? What happens in that phase? Is there going to be a complete crash? And you can see where the discourse is heading. Discourse is heading towards building agents which can use tools more effectively. So if they can use tools more effectively, it's a bit like humans, like I said before, right? You know, we weren't top of the food chain until we started to use tools and be able to work with fire. So it's kind of in this similar instance with these AIs. Do you give them access to tools, you know, calculators, web searches, your document knowledge, I don't know, anything else? And I think that's still quite not sophisticated yet, but is that the next thing which will take us to the next level? Or do we continue scaling? Because otherwise, I just feel like if we just continue scaling at this point, we might plateau and what they call, it's like a sigmoid curve, right? A sigmoid curve where it just ends up plateauing off. So
I think it needs it. I think we need a little bit of a correction because Josh, you're right. It's the bubble is as high as it can get, and a lot of the expectations have gone too far. You know that will probably bring some reality back in it. The trend is still upwards. I think I read something quite interesting today, which was like all the main models, they're starting to converge now into very, you know, we've gone through the inference stuff, we've gone through the reasoning. They're now got multimodal, and they're all starting to converge to be something very, very similar. So it doesn't really matter what you use. They're all very, very similar. And this person suggested kind of the AI war is kind of ending in terms of we're getting to that point where this is the law of diminishing returns. And now it's going to be very much a platform war. It's going to be, well, which of these is really going to win out for a particular sector? So I think that was quite an interesting take.
But Josh, do you see similarities with scanning technology from the AI space?
No. So with the scanning world, so I think the AI thing that we're all talking about is LLMs, and I mean that's sort of where they're stuck in. With scanning, there's other than probably the coding, although of course our coders never use ChatGPT; they do it all themselves. There's no sort of LLM, you know, we're not focused on that sort of technology coming out. Yeah. They're actually building stuff from scratch, and the algorithms are being created from scratch. And I think with scanning, it's definitely been something, you know, it's a section of construction. So construction has been very tech adverse. And then you've got a subsection of that, which is even more tech adverse. So in a weird way, we're quite lucky. I mean, like handheld devices have only been around for, I think what the BLK to go was probably the first one. And I think that's 8 years old or something around there. That's, you know, there's other, you know, there's quite a bit of tech coming out of, or hardware tech coming out of China, but the big limiting factor has been the cost of the Lidars, which fortunately we're being helped by all these self-driving cars wanting to adopt that. So that's bringing those costs down, but a lot of it's the SLAM algorithm.
Can you explain that a bit more? What's the SLAM algorithm?
So I'll explain this in really basic terms, which will be really helpful for some users and annoying to others. So in really simple terms, that when you're using a LiDAR device, so a LiDAR device is basically, it fires out a laser, that laser hits a point, and then that point bounces back, and then that's how it works out the distance it's traveled. Now, obviously, that works really well if it's a tripod and it doesn't move. But the moment you start moving the device, you need to then calculate your forward movement as well as the laser moving around. And that's then that SLAM algorithm. Now there are, at the moment, it's almost impossible for a handheld device to be as accurate as a tripod device, purely because, I mean, there's an extra process happening along the way. But from a construction basis, I'm very confident. I mean, we work to a sub 10 mil sort of accuracy level over about 30 to 40 meters. I mean, anybody in construction, other than maybe really specific data centers, I mean, that's well within most construction tolerances.
Mhm.
I mean, even historically, like Jesus, if you go back 30 years, those sort of construction tolerances were, that would be amazing. I mean, the best way to explain it, I always say, whenever somebody queries the accuracy, is I say, look, if we got 5 people to measure this room with a tape measure, we'd all come out a couple of millimeters different. And that's
Definitely.
realistically, what that is. But I mean, to go back to, like, I see with the surveying side of stuff, I think there's a lot more potential to sort of go onto, just because it's been so untouched. Surveying has essentially been, originally it was, let's measure a room with a pen and paper and then draw it. And then somebody came along with Lidar and said, well, I can scan this room. It's going to take a long time, but then we'll get there. And now it's where you can now walk around the room, but then you still need to draw it, because when you walk around the room, you get a point cloud. A point cloud is all those points that the Lidar took. Every time it hits the wall, it creates a point, and then that creates sort of like a 3D model. And now what we're trying to do is our long stop goal at NavLive is to be able to turn that point cloud into a true BIM model. So that includes the IBIT, the information. Really, like, we're trying to get to a point where it's tagged all the lights and it knows what that light is, and it's tagged the sockets and it knows what that is. So that's our like long stop goal. So if you think of where we are at the moment, like, we've got a long runway to go, and it's quite visible. It's very doable in theory, but there's a lot of coding that needs to happen before then.
Yeah.
When do you think that we'll get to a position whereby the technology matures to this level?
I mean, definitely within the next 10 years, and probably like within the next 5 years, we'll start to see some progress. So, I mean, even at the moment, we're tagging doors and windows and putting that into the model. Over the last 6 months, the level of AI drawing, and the drawings that NavLive produces are actually AI. This isn't that it's been shipped off quickly to some other country and then sent back, which is what I know some companies do. These are, and we admit to them, but well, you can clearly see them, because sometimes they're a bit shit. I think that's sort of fine, because it's like, look, this is actually what the AI is drawn. But yeah, so we're already tagging doors and windows. The next thing that we're going to be trying to do is lights and sockets.
Yeah.
So, to be able to do a reflective ceiling plan, and then tag all the light fittings. I mean, we're probably a little bit further away from being able to actually like put the information bit in to know what that device is. But that's more, that's computer learning. That's the more data we can throw at the device. And I mean, we're only a small little team they've been cracking on for 2 years now. So where they've got to in 2 years is phenomenal. And if you sort of have the same sort of run rate of progression that I guess we've seen in other tech sectors, I mean, the next 5 years will be almost a completely different product as far as software goes.
It's exciting, isn't it? I mean, I was struck because I had the pleasure of using it. Number one, about how small and light it was and easy to set up. I think you said to me, you didn't give me any instructions, did you? You just said, have a go, make it work. And I managed it. So if I can manage it, literally anyone can manage it. So, and then I was able to scan my first room really, really quickly. And I love that feature. It was able to detect, and I assume this is some kind of machine learning going on in terms of detecting the doors and the windows in the room. And the point clouds, literally straight away, it wasn't some other versions, you have to wait for the point cloud to be sent somewhere and send something. This happened immediately. So it was a very impressive experience. And I think it's going to enable anyone to, you don't have to be a big company to use it. This could be really useful for one-man bands or small SMEs as well. Is that kind of your target, or is this open to anyone really who needs to have some kind of scanning capability?
Well, I mean, from a sales side, it's open to anyone. So please do reach out. But I mean, I really think it would be such a benefit to one-man band architects or at least smaller firms.
Yeah.
I mean, I won't go into pricing, but obviously these devices are still reasonably expensive. So that's probably the biggest limiting factor when it comes to the one-man bands. But we do have a couple who have used the device, and like we have one chap so he went to a client meeting, he took his assistant walked around the house whilst he was chatting to the client. His assistant finished the scan. He loaded the scan up into the cloud, downloaded it onto his iPad, and then started doodling and drawing like right there in front of the client, as far as, starting to do sort of provisional changes and those sort of things.
And how long did that take between doing the scan and having that information available to him on his iPad?
So, I mean, well, I think doing the scan probably took the girl, I think, like 8 minutes or something to walk around the house. And then it would have been 2 minutes to upload it on a hotspot because she was in London. And then as the moment you're uploaded, you're ready to go.
Right.
And that's because everything's processed on the device. So again, that's a big difference. Where we've gone with hardware, we have a NVIDIA chip and essentially a computer in the device. That means everything's being processed in real time right there in front of you. So once you're finished, there's sort of a small, processing time of, 60 seconds to maybe a couple of minutes, depending how much data you scan. And then it's all ready. There's no third-party softwares. And I think that's what we were trying to do is we saw, like, I've tested a lot of scanners, and like some of them I got really frustrated. It shouldn't be that hard. Like so many people seem to have missed that early step of just making it as easy as possible because I just want the output.
I've just, for those on YouTube, just literally showing what it looks like because it's the best way to do it. For those not on YouTube, we'll put the link. It's incredibly compact. I mean, and it's quite. It's interesting. You say it says on your website there you're an Autodesk authorized developer as well. Is that a recent development? That's very cool.
That is. Although the more exciting one to talk about at the moment is Trimble. So we've got a partnership coming with Trimble and SketchUp.
Okay, tell us about that.
The idea is to be able to go from scan to SketchUp. So you'll be able to scan a building that will export directly into your Trimble account in SketchUp, and you'll then be able to edit that drawing on SketchUp almost instantly. So like that is the quickest way to get from no digital data to digital data about as quickly as possible. And look, not everybody uses SketchUp, and I think it's probably the more basic end of the drawing tools. But in a weird way, I really think the NavLive model it empowers somebody who doesn't potentially have that level of experience. Like you don't need to be an expert surveyor to get a fairly decent survey out of it. You can get a high quality survey very quickly with limited experience on how to use the device. I think James, it took us 60 seconds for you to start up your scan, and 15 of those seconds was because you misspelled a word and had to restart that.
Right, yeah. If that only happened once, we've done well.
And then obviously, as you see it building in front of you, you can, and that's the next thing that we're trying to do is to make sure that you're methodical with your scan. So we took the approach of having a wider angle Lidar so that you capture more data points rather than having a narrow Lidar, which is it gives you slightly increased accuracy. But our view is I'd rather be able to capture 95% of the points with the accuracy that we can than somebody misses it and captures 70% of the points, but at a higher accuracy, because your end result is going to be worse because you miss sections.
So Josh, that's the kind of question I was going to ask you, because for someone like me, my background isn't in construction. I've been in construction for a few years, but you said you were using portable scanning, and there are a lot of difficulties with that because you have to use smart algorithms to help you actually ensure your data is accurate and valid, et cetera, et cetera. So how does this benefit in comparison to typical LiDAR scans on a tripod?
I mean, I think the first one is speed and ease of use. And that's probably actually in the simplest stage, that is essentially it. That you can get a scan yourself with, just by walking around. So however long it takes you to walk around a property, by the time you've finished, you've essentially got your scan. And that's then on the portal ready for you to download either in DXF file, which is a DWG in 2D. You can download the point clouds. As AI drawings get better and better, the idea is that you'll be able to just download a full model ready to go. So what you haven't had to do is you haven't had to get a surveyor out, so time-wise. But even if you are a surveyor, the complexities on some of these softwares that you have to realign the models and run them through other softwares, which then, like most of the time, you need a slightly better computer to run it through. Like we've also made the decision so our point clouds, we reduce the amount of density of the point cloud. So although we capture all the points in post-processing, we reduce the amount of points captured, which means that our point cloud models are a much smaller file size, which therefore means that you can stick that into Autodesk quite easily, and it's a really easy to use model rather than sort of the 5, 10, 15 gigabyte models that I know I've used in the past. And I was on a call with the construction side where an architect was having to slice up his point cloud because it was too big. It was too big for him to manually play around with each time. His computer just couldn't handle it.
Is there a sacrifice there? Is there a sacrifice there by reducing the density?
So the sacrifice in reducing the density is, so what we're not selling really pretty point clouds. And I think that's sort of the decision that we made reasonably early on. And it sort of boils down to, why do you do a building survey? You do a building survey not to get a point cloud. You do a building survey because you want a survey of what it is. You essentially, at some stage, you want a floor plan, either be it 2D, 3D, whatever. You want to know the size of the rooms and everything like that. What you're not sort of worried about at this, like, nobody uses point clouds. Like, before I did anything, and before I was sort of brought in to Navlive, like, I hadn't really used point clouds. In a construction company, most people don't even really know what a point cloud is, but they know what the output is. They know what the end result of that point cloud is. So yes, our point clouds aren't super sexy. They're not super pretty. You can't sort of, like, I have seen some where you can like read what's written on a piece of paper stuck to a wall on the point clouds, and you go, wow, man, that's amazing.
Yeah, what's the use of that?
But yeah, I mean, exactly. What is, that doesn't help you. I mean,
No.
you can do that with a picture. So our device takes pictures at the same time, and you can use the two together. But we're giving you sort of speed and just ease of use, which there's definitely a market for both.
Well, I think it's so important, actually, because the next question I was going to ask is around the kind of culture and resistance to change. One of the problems with the resistance to change is because sometimes we overcomplicate things. So you rightly say, like point cloud, most people don't even know what it is. And actually, they don't really care. Actually, what they want is an output. But I find that a lot of these construction tech companies are selling on the basis of these kind of features that they have, these tech features, but missing the actual benefit to the end user. So whilst some might say construction is resistant to change, do you think your tool and the way that you're marketing it can shift behaviors in an industry that really does rely heavily on legacy processes?
I mean, I'd really enjoy that if it did. I mean, I think by I guess what we're trying to do is what I mentioned before about project management software is what I want them to do. I want them to take out the sort of like the middle bit. That's sort of what we're doing. We're taking out the middle bit of getting from that point cloud to that output that you actually want. So like from a project management software, I just want it to help me run the project. I want it to give me the guidelines and say, like, you need to fill out this paperwork. This is the paperwork. You need to fill in these 17 lines and then you can crack on. Or you're at this stage of the project, you need to do this. So with the scanning device, it's sort of, okay, well, you can go and walk around the building. We'll do all the weird stuff behind the scenes. And then here you go, here's your floor plan. Which everybody then knows what a floor plan is. Even if you go outside of the construction industry, people can still look at a floor plan and understand what it is to enough of enough, and they can then use that output. And I think if we go back even earlier, what we're talking about, the next level of AIs, like that's where I think these agents come in, and that's where I think linking them into giving them the tools, Yoshi, as you said, we need them to do that next level where they can actually then provide assistance rather than just being this big sort of wall of text, if that makes sense.
So I guess to some extent you could see that, the drawings, the layouts, or the surveys that you then get could be a tool an AI could have access to make sense of that, in addition to having, I don't know, the project schedule, the risk management procedure, all these sort of things.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, we're already, we are slowly starting to incorporate more machine learning and more AI in the detecting of the different devices. So, even down to the fact that the thing we're working on at the moment is to be able to create door and window schedules so that once you've finished finished the scan, it'll provide you with a list of all the doors and windows that are in the property. So again, it's not about giving you 100, it's not about doing the work for you, but it's about setting the groundwork to make your bit of work easier. So yeah, the doors and windows, they may not all be super accurate. It may not be quite right, but at least you've got a list. It's all formatted correctly. It's there ready for you to go. And then you can just check them and go through them. And I think that's what we're sort of pushing towards with the AI drawings. This isn't doing it for you just yet. I mean, we're a good few years away from being 100% perfect or even 90% perfect, but it's about setting the ground foundation for you to then go on and make your life just a little bit easier.
And it's that grunt work, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it. It's the grunt work, yeah.
The most laborious task ever, putting together a window and door schedule. No one ever wants to do that. I'm sure there's some weird person somewhere who enjoys it.
Write in the comments if you enjoy that, please. James has got some properties for you to do.
Yeah, but if we can just take that away and, like you say, even make it 80% better. So they've got, you probably still need to go through it and check it, but you've done the grunt work of it. So you can get, and that's why I keep saying, I think that's still the key to it. And actually that brings us on nicely to the next section really, which is about the future project delivery. Your perspective is going to be quite useful here, Josh, because you've obviously worked in traditional contracting and you've got that crossover with construction tech. So can I ask you a question in terms of like project management? Because we'll have a lot of project managers listening throughout the world, actually. And there's no consensus on this at the moment, but what do you think the project manager of the future looks like?
I really like this question. So I see project managers at the moment, firefighters. Realistically, I mean, you're fixing problems, you're solving stuff on site, something's changed, you're having to immediately jump on something. And however organized you may be at the start of the project, at some stage, it's something's going to go wrong and you're going to have to firefight. I see the project manager of the future being more like an air traffic controller, where you've just got all the information presented to you in front of you, and you can, it's there for you to sort of move around. You'll have a 3D scan of the building that's, updated daily or something, or maybe even hourly. I mean, geez, you can put a Lidar on a drone without too much problem. So you can see real-time progress. That real-time progress is then tracked. So again, there are already softwares out there, very, very expensive ones, can track on-site progress through videos, so they can see how much cabling is being laid, how much ducting is being done, how much pipe work has been done, and then how much of that's been lagged and that sort of stuff. So you can see real-time progress happening. You can see wouldn't it be amazing if your Gantt chart actually like changed because it said, well, this still looks like it's got 50% of the way to go through. So we've shifted everything along a little bit more. And then, probably more
That's
realistic.
the holy grail, isn't it?
I mean, if you think like a Gantt chart hasn't changed in ever. I mean, they're terrible. I mean, they're lovely. I really like laying them out at the beginning, but how many construction sites have you been on where you've got the beginning Gantt chart and you go, well, that's like 3 months off, everything's off on this thing.
Yeah. They don't make it past day one on a project in terms of accuracy.
I mean, the start date, if you get the start date to line up, then that's a pretty good start.
Yeah, even that's a challenge sometimes.
I mean, I think that's it. They'll just have access to so much more live data rather than dealing with historic data and then sort of having to jump on stuff, which is, constantly coming at them.
I think it's mad because I saw a report. I think it might have been called a chaos report recently. It was more within the IT projects, but it was something like 13% of projects which have a project manager actually are successful. And actually, sometimes it's like, is there the question that you don't actually need a project manager and you just rely on those who are delivering the project themselves, which is an interesting question. But yeah, I mean, Josh,
of course, in construction, project managers are relatively new inventions. We've gone thousands of years building buildings without project manager. It used to be the architect, didn't it? Was the master, and then before that, the main contractor. So it's a relatively recent kind of innovation in itself. And it's not like we didn't build some incredible things before the advent of the project manager. Not saying what project managers do is not important, but it's just an interesting point of history.
No, I mean, project managers, I think, have become a necessity because of the way the construction industry's gone.
Absolutely.
Like I always say, I'd rather have a site manager who's grown up on a building site, either been an ex something, ex carpenter, ex brickie, has been there all the time and has been on site. And the project manager, I would say, I don't think they need to be super construction specific. It's definitely helpful because there's a lot of paperwork that they're going to have to fill out and do. But that's project management now. And I think that's really sad that it's become a necessity because of all of the regulations that are coming in. I mean, principal designer things, you've got high risk buildings coming in. I mean, all this extra complexity rather than focusing on like the artisan builder. Like the artisan builder's, gone. I mean, I'm based in London, so the amount of times that I drive past Natural History Museum or these sort of beautiful buildings that we used to build, I mean, I'd love, who knows, did the Natural History Museum have a project manager when it ran? I don't know, maybe. But what it did have is it had loads of people. It had loads of people like knew how to build and build like beautiful things. And I sort of feel that we've run away from that part of building. We're now just flooded with paperwork and documents. That the hope is that AI comes along and sort of fixes that and says, okay, look, you can use this software and it'll help you manage all of this. So you don't need to have a degree to be able to build something. But if you're really good at building, then you can actually just go and do that. Like if you're a good stonemason or you're a really good brickie or, you're just really good with timber, then you that's what your specialty can go back to rather than having to do paperwork.
100%. This is what I think is the opportunity when people ask me, particularly why have I got so invested in AI? It's because of that very point. It's this once in a generation opportunity to actually bringing it back to the whole point of this, which is delivering better projects. And it doesn't matter whether it's a construction project or an infrastructure project. If this is the way that we can deliver projects better, and even if we make a 10% gain in how we deliver projects, that's going to be significant. And I think there's a lot we can learn from history, actually, going back to how we used to do things. So it's marrying the two together. It's marrying new technology alongside lessons from the past about how we used to do things and build these beautiful buildings before. So really interesting how things are going to progress. But we are kind of getting towards the end of the podcast already. So I did want to take us to the last section, which is a little bit about you, actually, Josh, and some things that you can tell our listeners about. And I know that you're very into your extreme endurance events. So what drives you to sign up for these events when you're ready? You presumably got a lot going on with your companies and then your consultancy work with Nav Live.
The thing I like about endurance events is it's a purely you thing, and I quite like just being outside. Like it's really nice to just get away from screens and spreadsheets and all that sort of stuff, and touch the grass, people. Like really, we're humans. You need to if you just step away from the keyboard every now and then. But I think it's a challenge that's purely myself. Nobody else can impact it, and nobody else can change the boundaries of the challenge. Construction sites, the client can come in and suddenly change the rules of play. Nobody's going to do that in a race. Nobody's going to say, "I'll only cancel if you run backwards now."
That's what it feels like in construction.
Well, yeah, or sorry, we've just suddenly changed the course and you now got to do another 30 kilometers that way. You'd be like, oh, well, what? But that's construction. Like people will completely change everything that you're doing. I mean, I've been on projects before where we've built stuff and then the client's got in and go, I don't like that. And you rip it all out and you go, ah, shit. Yeah. But you can't be late. You still got to finish when the program said, I think that's why it gets me away from the drama of other people's stuff. And it's my own little space. It's my own thing. Like I'm not super competitive. I mean, maybe I wish I would train more, but it's more, it's me just pushing me as far as I want to go, as hard as I want to go, realizing that you can always go more. You can always give slightly more.
Yeah.
And that's sort of something that I think a lot of people forget. And I know it's something that I wasn't aware of, when I was younger. You go through your troublesome teenage years that you think that you're really shit and you can't sort of achieve stuff. But when you're doing endurance, it's not about power. It's just about how much further you're willing to go. It's a case of breaking it all down to, at points, you can break it all down to one step in front of another, 1 foot in front of another, and you just keep doing that.
And commitment, right? When you don't feel like it and you just got to get your shit together and do it. I think that's a really important lesson from it.
Yeah, totally. And most of the time, like you'll push through that shit period and it'll be great. And you'll get such a high at the other end of it. I mean, for those of you out there who do train, I mean, there'll be many times that you're like, I'll put my trainers on, I'll sit in front of the door sometimes for like 10 minutes before I actually start running because I can't be bothered. I'm like, oh, this is going to be terrible. I'll hate this. And then you run and you feel great. And afterwards, and you get that little bit of high because that's what your body needs. Sometimes you need those endorphins going.
100%.
It's funny you say that because a lot of the things that you're saying about endurance and this sort of training, putting each foot instead of each other and, committing, seeing how far you can go. Some people would also apply that to building a business. So my question for you, Josh, is what's harder, building a business or running up Snowdon at 3 a.m.?
Yeah, business is way harder. And it's just because Snowdon was incredible. So that was how many times you could run up and down Snowdon within 24-hour period. And my answer was 6. The winner's answer was 10, and I don't know how he did 10. I mean, I could have done 7, but at the end of 6, I was like, I haven't hurt myself, so I'm just gonna stop here.
Quit wash your head.
Yeah, sort of. But yeah, like Snowdon was just me again. It's purely me. Any mistakes I've had on, there was a bit of fueling issues. It was all my own fault. It was all my own problems. And it was all my own thing to fix. There was nobody else who could really get involved. I mean, sure, my girlfriend was at the bottom and, give me you can do it. But like that's, there's nothing else. But business, like so many people throw negativity at you. So many people almost don't want you to succeed. And so many people are rude. Like it's amazing how rude people are in the industry. Construction tenders are a great example where, we'll spend weeks, 4 to 6 weeks pricing something up. You send it over to them and you get nothing back. And you're like, damn, dude, at least just say you didn't win it.
Yeah, but I think that's got worse as well. I mean, it's interesting what you say about people not sort of cheering you on as well. And someone said something to me the other day which stuck, which is people want you to do well, just not as well as them.
Yeah.
And there is that little bit of sort of jealousy in there, which is really interesting because actually there's enough. It's a scarcity mentality, isn't it? You think that, if that person does well, then they're taking away some good things from me. And that's not the case, actually. We've got to just grow the pie for everyone.
It's some game, isn't it, eventually?
It is. Of course it is. Of course.
Yeah, I mean,
really...
if we all do well, then hopefully as a collective group we all do better, and that should be the hope. But I mean, like if you help somebody at a time that they need a bit of help, I guarantee you they will help you at some stage in the future.
Yeah.
And I think that's sort of positive.
In endurance training, right? I mean, I've seen a few marathon runs when someone can't make it past the finish line and someone's there supporting them, just tagging them along, and it shows you, like, even in these sort of events, despite it being so competitive, like there's still so much support for one another. But when the field gets a bit murkier in the business,
isn't that amazing? How even though that's a race environment where you're there theoretically to win it, but in business where it is no race, like there's no race in business.
Yeah,
you can.
There's no finish line, is there?
There's no finish line, but people will generally almost sometimes go out of their way to make sure that you don't succeed. And you're like, that's crazy. So Snowden's much easier than anything in business.
Yeah.
Or construction for that matter.
So when you were sitting there tying your shoes up for 10 minutes to go for a run, it takes you about 20 to go to work.
We all had those days.
So that's what that commute's for. It's that hour on the train where you got to psych yourself up and go, yeah, I could do this. But yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Josh. Listen, we've come to the end already. We could have gone on for a lot longer, I'm sure. Where can people find out about you? We will put your LinkedIn. I presume you're on LinkedIn. I know we shared the website earlier, so we'll put that on the show notes as well. But is there anything else or any other places people can find out about you?
No, so that's mainly it. So LinkedIn, I'm sort of reasonably active. I post non-AI generated content as much as I can.
That's quite important caveat there.
Live, if you're interested in the surveying side, if you're London based, look, I'm happy to do a demo for most people, just because I think, as James said, like if you see it, it's a completely different experience than just sort of explaining it. And construction, if you've got a project in West London that you need built, then reach out. That's pepperbuild.com.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Josh. Listen, I hope both of you have a fantastic weekend, because we're about to end for our bank holiday weekend now. But thank you so much for coming on the show. And I really am looking forward to see what happens with Nav Live, because it's a fantastic piece of kit, and which is why we brought you on. And I think it's got a lot of potential. Going back to what we said, demystifying it, something that, like I said, even I was able to get up and running in 60 seconds, even with a spelling mistake, right? So do check it out. Everyone listening, it's well worth looking into. And thank you again, Josh, so much for coming on. We really appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Thanks very much, guys.
Project Flux is here.
That's a wrap for today's episode. But before you go, exciting news. Project Flux is teaming up with Project Management Global to bring you the latest in AI-driven project delivery and essential management insights. Through this partnership, expect weekly AI insights, practical tools, and expert thought leadership, ensuring you stay ahead in the evolving project landscape. Stay tuned for exclusive content, joint research, and strategies to supercharge your project outcomes. You can learn more at www.pm-global.co.uk and be part of the future of project management. See you later.
Project Flux is here.
Just want to give a big shout out to our sponsors, Construct AI. For anyone interested in looking at Construct AI, the link's in our show notes. There's a free tier that you can play around with. Yoshi and I have been using it for a good year since it was originally launched, and we get a huge amount of value out of it. So I thoroughly encourage everyone to go onto the Construct AI site and have a play around.
Cool. And guys, before we sign off, please don't forget to share, follow, and like all of our stuff. So that helps us to engage with you and understand a bit more about what you want, so we can bring it to your doorstep as early as possible.
See you later, everyone.